instead are just another one of those cards that doubles down on the idea that every single minion in this deck needs to be removed or you will run away with the game, which is generally why players feel that the druid is in the lead in this matchup. But I've seen a couple of disgruntled players after their performance in the Masters Tour saying that having played this a bunch of times now, they no longer believe that's the case. I think there's a little bit more in this aggro mirror than initially meets the eye.
Yeah, one thing I can tell you as we get into this first match of the top 8, of course, is that this matchup is brutal regardless of who wins, because so much of the game happens in the first like 3 to 4 turns. A lot of the time where the hunter might be able to get on top of maybe a more rough druid opening, say there's like an arbor up, a composting, and like one other minion in their opening hand, and that can be a bit tricky for the druid to keep up. But also on the other side of that, druid can really pop off early, and a lot of the time hunter's like, I need exactly Rinlin's rifle into like explosive trap to be able to fight back in the game. So either way, it is very, very brutal. And I do believe I'm not sure is this frozen for you, Derek, or is it just frozen for me?
Is frozen for me, yeah. I'm trying to think if we can get into a backup feed. Our one has not come up yet. But yes, it does appear that for production as well, the feed has frozen. So we'll get into it as soon as possible. Again, it's a little bit annoying in this matchup that this is the way it went, because these first few turns are so crucial. And as you can see, in these first crucial couple of turns, Badajimpom has got off to quite a start.
This is close to us coming back from that tech issue and Yuansu's portrait just exploding at this point. You can see the Felmore so slow in this matchup. There is a grave out. Like, if the Felmore goes into that, that's a true nightmare. There's already just minions all over the board. That Battle Guard is, I would say, safe, right? Outside of that one swing, of course, from the Felmore. And if the Battle Guard is unkillable, things just start going very, very wrong very, very fast. And you can see, right? Yuansu did not get a competitive opening here. And what's he doing? Like, is a Rhino going to help him out? Does he have to go Walpertinger to try and just even up board count based on minions? It looks like that's what he's going for, but is it really going to work at this point?
Yeah, this is where I personally favor the slightly, I don't know if I want to call them newer builds or different builds of Face Hunter, where you run the double true aim crescent. That is the card that for me can potentially dig you out of a truly miserable position like this. Maybe not one as bad as this one. This is just an absolute blowout 2-minute game of Hearthstone for Badajimpom. But with the Rhinos, you can often clear the board whilst also dealing a lot of damage. And then maybe because there's a lot of 1/1s that are generally played by the Druid or one health minions, you can then follow up with the piercing shot to close out the game. But here, obviously, that's not happening. This game is over.
Yeah, and that kind of strategy really preys on the Druid's general weakness of having no damage from hand. So if you push them off board, they're very predictable. But you are right, this just feels way too slow. Like, I like the idea from Yuansu to try and just even up the board state a little bit. But is that just lethal now with that Park Panther? 3,
6, 9, 12.
7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Adds up to lethal, Derek. And that was just in a blink of an eye and a blink of the screen. Going to be game number 1 going to Badajimpom, and it's a huge, just quick victory in exactly the way you want to start a very important series of Hearthstone.
That's right, Badajimpom, bada boom pow, getting that first game done. And for Yuansu, this is something he's not going to be overly familiar with. I believe he was the only player to go undefeated through the Swiss portion, a straight 8-0 sweep, which of course does not mean he didn't lose individual games of Hearthstone, but to get off to such a swift loss like that is not where you want to be. I do think that for Badajimpom, that was one of the easier decks to get a win with the way that Yuansu's lineup is shaping up. The Demon Hunter can be a pretty good one there. The Hunter itself, as we saw there, is generally considered a good matchup for the aggro druid. And of course, the non-aggro druid, the Anaconda druid for Yuansu as well, can prove to be a very easy deck to get the win with there. But with that one done, as nice as it is for Badajimpom, it's one of those decks that is expected to get a win in the series.
Right, and this is what we were talking about in the last series with Super Fake, right? As soon as that Warlock took a victory for Demon, we were like, oh no, the whole plan's falling apart. And it did end up falling apart in the end, but not because of that particular reason. We are going to get ready for our game number 2, though, and now just to remind you guys, Badajimpom has this Libram Paladin available to him as well. Looks to be a fairly standard list, but we are going to check in with what Yuansu WE.Yuansu's going to bring to the table, and it is going to be this druid. For a couple of weeks especially, the terror of the European Grandmasters. It was just destroying everyone and made a lot of players who were sticking to the more sort of, the Cthulhu Celestial version just switch over, because I think very quickly they just went, you know what, this is just better. I have more game, especially against aggro matchups, to switch to that Glowfly plan.
That's right, yeah. An ultimate win condition was simply not necessary in this metagame, where playing a bunch of Glowfly minions or a big Anaconda board, what can deal with a board of 12 health minions? There's basically nothing, because Warlock, the best they have is Soul Rend. Demon Hunter, generally they can do 6 damage AoE, maybe 8 at a pinch, but that's generally just going to be big enough to get the game done. And I will say, as the one saving grace, as I cope pretty hard here, even if APAC can't get through to the top 8, our legacy lives on, because this is Surrender's list the first time I saw it, with the claw machine to draw you out the Anaconda, which feels like it has just become the standard build of this list. So we're here in spirit.
I was very much ready for your other strategy in this scenario of, even if there's no Asia Pacific players left, technically I'm European, or I live in the European region, so there's European people.
That's my trump card.
Playing, so yeah, I'll be okay in the end. I'm just waiting for the way you weasel your way into the other regions as well, Derek. It's like, I passed America's Grandmasters a couple of times, so...
Yeah, ni hao, Pungyo. Let's go.
You won't ever need to weasel your way into the America side of these stories.
That's not happening. But yes, for Yuansu to start things off in this matchup, it's a bit of a weird one, right? Because generally over the history of Hearthstone, Druid has kind of struggled against Paladin decks like this. Divine Shields, big buffs. Like, Druid is the weakest of all the classes, I think it's fair to say, against buff effects, because they can't deal with singular big minions, and generally they don't clear off every minion the turn it comes down. But against Libram Paladin, every time you say it's favored on paper, it just feels like it crumbles before your eyes when you actually see it in play. Because even though they can make all these big minions with the Librams of Hope, the Librams of Wisdom to buff them up, Hand of Adal as well helps with that, the Druid just does more powerful things in the mid-game if they find the Anaconda to bolster that.
Yeah, I completely agree. I was speaking to TJ earlier about this. I was saying, like, even though Paladin has recorded good win rates in certain scenarios, certain time periods recently, I just can't get through that every time I see it on stream. It looks like you're piloting Hearthstone on hard mode. It's like, why don't my cards do good things? So we'll see how this one pans out. Not the best opening for badajimpom, and that's the big problem for Paladin for me, right? Like, look at this. It's a bit messy. It's a bit slow. It's not as aggressive as it needs to be. The Bannerman definitely now helps as a pickup from the top, but still, it's just not quite as smooth as he wants it to be. This Lady Liadrin is kind of a nothing card for the foreseeable future, because a lot more things have to happen to make Liadrin attractive to be played in the early game. You have to have some really crazy openings to want to play that card, like on curve, for example.
That's right. You're trying to stem the influence the direction of the matchup in the early turns for Paladin. Once turn 7 rolls around, Liadrin's kind of too slow. They've either played their big board or they've lost anyway as the Druid, because they haven't hit the good hand. But now for Yuansu, he has plenty of options as to how he wants to approach this. Obviously, the Bloom Overgrowth on this turn is tempting, leaves him with 4 mana next turn that can be used for a Glowfly if he wants to. So, okay, he still has strong tempo options, but what I would imagine is more likely, potentially, is he's just banking the mana now, gearing up for that Claw Machine in a couple turns' time, and then he's going to go off one piece of card draw in a Nourish or a Fungal Fortunes, and that guaranteed Anaconda that he'll get off the Claw Machine can make miracles happen.
Here's the big problem, though, right? The Anaconda turns can be incredible. If you want to get 1 million Illidari Inquisitors and win the game, fantastic. But
yes,
don't do exactly that. And badajimpom has just saved Barov Satax.
Yeah.
Like, does that just end the game there and then? Is that just it in a lot of circumstances?
It's not the end of the game because you can get yourself a lot of other advantages at the same time. Like very often you're going to ramp to 10, you're going to have drawn 1 million cards as well. So if you're spacing out your resources well, you can go for the big Anaconda turn. Maybe it's cleared, but then you go Solar Arbor, Solar Cenarian. Maybe you've discovered a Soul of the Forest, or even just a big dragon off of the resizing pouch on turn 10 as well. So there are definitely refueling options afterwards if you're clever.
Or as well, I guess, Celestial alignment itself, right? If you end the Anaconda turn on Celestial, then Barov tax can't be played on the next turn. And there's a Celestial.
Ooh. A tempting prospect, but a dangerous one as well. We often talk about decks that can cheat out mana on their big minions, be it the Flesh Giant for Warlock, the Brutes for Demon Hunter if they're playing that build. But the Librams can also work in that fashion with the Celestial alignment, and if they're able to discount them and then play 2 Librams of Hope on the same turn, things can get very scary. But Yuansu, with the resizing pouch, just finds a second Anaconda. Hello?
Now this is going to be backbreaking here, because Badajimpom will be like, okay, he'll see an Anaconda turn, fine. You know, I know he knows it's there now, right? Because that's what the claw machine draws. So he knows there's an Anaconda in hand.
Ooh.
He doesn't know there's a second one.
He does also trade the city tax, which, because he has the broom in hand, is still fine. Barov is still a guaranteed clear by just being able to rush into something on the other side. But it means that board clear is getting a little bit flimsier. If he's forced into using that broomstick for something else, then all of a sudden the guaranteed board clear isn't there. So he does need to be careful now to make sure he has the response he needs.
I think to say, like, right now, Liadrin just may as well not be a card because he's not playing anything significant. Yes, there's some Librams. Yes, there's some Hand of a Dolls and stuff, but there's nothing significant being played, so Badajimpom basically has a board clear, and that's it for now. Like, there's nothing else.
So Yuansu going with Solar into the Solar Germination and Solar Nourish, I think is smart, because he's utilizing the Solar Eclipse to refill its hand rather than to go overkill on the board. You definitely don't want to overextend. And I think this is that very clever middle ground where he has an incredibly threatening board, but he's still setting up for power plays next turn as well.
Yeah, this is the, well, do you have it then kind of question, isn't it?
Sure.
And then if they do, obviously, because of that secret second the germinations there, like, do you think Yuansu should just stop at this point and be like, okay, if you clear that, great. If you don't, even better.
I think stopping here is very reasonable. Like, you could go for another Germination, another Arbor up. I don't think that's absurd. But you only really want to play one of those, right? Any more, and all of a sudden, you're going way too all in. But Yuansu disagrees. He's saying you have to have the answer right now, or I just win the game. And for Badajimpom, he's got the answer. This all-in push for Yuansu is getting punished to the highest degree.
Oh, I am with you. I think that should have been a one or the other from Yuansu.
Yeah.
I know it's difficult because we see the AoE, and Yuansu also saw a tax being traded away, right? But I just think this just wasn't even remotely necessary. I think the only way this ever works is if he did the alignment in the same turn, right? He got the alignment and then said, well, you literally cannot play 2 cards to clear the board until the turn after, and then you say, well, if you can't clear the board that turn, I just win. I think that's absolutely fine. But this, I feel like he stepped on a bit of a landmine here.
Yeah, I mean, you can maybe make the argument that because City Tax was traded, they don't have the answer, but I think that's very, very flimsy reasoning, to be honest, because the reason that they're trading City Tax is most likely because they already have
a spare one, right?
Right, yeah. Or maybe if they don't have the Libram of Justice or the Barov, they would trade the City Tax. Like, maybe you can make the read that way. But generally, I agree, specifically with the Arbor Up. It's that kind of card where, you know, yes, you get 8 more attack if you play it immediately rather than waiting a turn, but you're still killing them next turn if you just play the Arbor up with all those other minions in play. You don't need to preload that necessarily. And as a result, all of a sudden, Yuansu is looking to be in some trouble. He's got the fungal, of course, the glowfly if he wants to. Another Anaconda is very nice, but look at the fuel he has to go alongside that. It's not game winning on its own.
It's not. I do think that if he goes for this alignment now, expects a very slow turn from badajimpom, and then he can go, he can get Anaconda, nourish, and that's his last chance, right? He does have that Cenarion Ward that I just showed off there, so he does have Cenarion Ward and Arbor Up still in the deck, so if he can get hold of them and make a huge board, then maybe that's good enough. But the fact that all these Librams are reduced, this is a good Liadrin turn, actually, as a response, now that there are so many Librams in the pool.
That's right.
Job's done.
And obviously, again, the other avenue that we can go down for Yuansu is that we could make the argument that he thought, if they clear half my board, the second half isn't enough to win the game anyway, which is, I think, a slightly more reasonable argument to make. But even then, with second Anaconda, 2 more Cenarion Wards yet to come, like, he could represent a board that very, very easily pushes lethal.
Yeah, this Nature Studies could be big as well, right? This is maybe the X factor that's left over after the Cenarion Ward and Arbor Up. Like, the Nature Studies getting something strong here and something unexpected could be a big, big deal. But Yuansu is just facing down, for a start, a 10-10 on board, and never mind the rest of the minions.
Ooh, Mark of the Spike Shell, if he can get a taunt off Cenarion Ward, is interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it's worth a try at this point, isn't it? It's going to replay alignment to reduce the mana down. Not
Yeah, it's not really what you're looking for. You can give +2/+2 to your Liadrin, I guess, but you're not... Oh, sorry, to your Anaconda, but you're not copying anything at this point. Could he give +2/+2 to the Devout Pupil and add that to his hand? I don't even know if you can do that with Mark of the Spike Shell, to be honest. I think you can, but...
Yeah, I think it's just target a minion, right?
Yeah. I don't even know if you want to at that point.
Yeah, I think here... Yuansu's just doing what he can do, right? He's making the one final board that he possibly can. And he's just going to say, right, let's see what happens. But a McGurgle Prime as well.
Oh, it's just lethal. He needed 1 damage.
I forgot the Hand of Adol, yeah.
Oh, I think with Fatigue, actually, he didn't even need the 1 damage. It was just lethal. And that means that after a very rapid game 1, a pretty quick game 2 as well, it was just over like that. badajimpom up 2-0 against one of the terrors of the Masters Tour system. As we were saying, Yuansu has been playing in a whole bunch of these. It's his 11th Masters Tour, which means he's only missed like 3, right, over the entirety of its inception, and has got a above 60% win rate alongside those. And badajimpom out of nowhere just comes and destroys him.
Yeah, I will say, I do think that Yuansu did that to himself to an extent in this game. Like, this turn, did he need to pop off with every single thing? Like, what was... So for me here, especially, I guess, the Arbor Up was the question for me, because with the Arbor Up, like, yes, it's more stats on board right now, but he wasn't attacking, right? So he wasn't gaining any value instantly. And how is Paladin going to clear that board? It either kills 1 to 2 minions, maybe, or it wipes them all with Libram, in which the health and everything from Arbor Up doesn't make a difference, right? Because a Libram, a Barov, whatever, puts them to 1, so it doesn't matter. And I think because of exactly that second Anaconda and the potential refill he still had left in his deck, he still had Glowfly, another Arbor Up, and a Cenarion Ward, he could have just said, well, if you can't clear this, I can just Arbor Up next turn and push tons of damage. If you can, I do the same thing again. And then it's extremely unlikely it gets cleared. So I do think Yuansu slipped a little bit there again. Easy for us to say because we could see the clear in hand. So maybe if you math it out, it's just correct to go all in at that point. But regardless, that game is done with now, and Yuansu's taking a break and going to his Brute Demon Hunter. So we're at least going to see the Brutes, at least potentially in this game, Derek.
That's right. And it's got to be said, bringing Brute Demon Hunter last Masters Tour was brave. If you remember, it was the stream like 3 hours before submission where Xblaze just got an unbelievable streak of wins with Brute Demon Hunter on rank 1 legend, and everyone was all of a sudden, why are you doing this to me now? I thought I had the lineup, and all of a sudden this deck might actually be good. Yeah, it turns out it was actually pretty good. It was a fickle deck, you know, you couldn't necessarily trust it to always get the job done, but the power level was incredibly high when it was working alongside you and giving you the right draws. But bringing Brute Demon Hunter to this Masters Tour is incredibly brave, bordering on insane. But for Yuansu, it's been working clearly so far. He has yet to drop a series, so either it's been banned or he's won with it in every single series. And you know what? I'm willing to go along with him on it for this one, because I was very much wrong about OTK Demon Hunter. When Il'gynoth went from 4 to 6, I was very happily saying the deck is dead. OTK Demon Hunter cannot function like this. I was proven 100% incorrect. It's arguably the best deck in the metagame right now. And with Brutes going from 7 to 8, the kind of thought process was the same for me. That 1 mana difference is just too much. It's so difficult to get Brutes down at the start of the game, which is still true, but it's really the power of Glide in those later turns once Kurtrus has come down where things really start to come together. And if you can get down 2 or 3 Brutes on the same turn, Aggro Elemental Shaman cannot answer that. They just lose. So there's a real chance here still for Yuansu to turn this one around.
Yeah, it's a very specific chance though, right? Because Yuansu generally needs to do that early, which I think, again, with the nerfs, is hard to do. And also, it needs to be enough Brutes, because you can stare right there at 2 Lily Pad Lurkers in the deck here, of course, on the Elemental Shaman side for badajimpom. And if, like, 2 Brutes get played onto a board, and 1 is Lily Pad Lurker or Hexed, then that's not really a problem for the Shaman. It's not great for the Shaman, but it's not like, oh, I've lost the game now, right? The recovery options are there, especially with a potential Instructor Fireheart. And one of the big problems for the Brute Demon Hunter is the general lack of removal, right? It's not OTK Demon Hunter. It doesn't have tons of AoE available and huge board swings. So with an opening exactly like this, Yuansu's going to have to go fast and get these Brutes on board now. I doubt this is going to be any kind of I'll wait till I pop off with Lion's Frenzy type of game. It'll be long over by then.
How do you even play this? Like, 1, 2, 3 coin Doomhammer sounds pretty good. 1 coin 3 into 3 sounds pretty good. Everything just sounds really strong.
1 into 3 into 3 into 2 into Doomhammer? Does that work?
Perfect. I love it. Yep. Let's do that.
Numbers.
Yeah. No, I absolutely agree. If you're against OTK Demon Hunter, I think turboing out the Doomhammer a turn sooner would be more important. But here in this series, against the Brute Demon Hunter, it's just more important to get minions on board. They do not have answers to this, as we can see, and so badajimpom is just going to be rolling over this early game.
Good thing is for Yuansu is he knows what he needs to do, right? He needs to just get some minions down, maybe to at least try and contest, but the main goal, draw cards, get quest procs done, hit those Brutes. But this is my point, like, already, unless 2 to 3 Brutes are going to come down in the next turn or so, badajimpom will be able to just punch through them. And this Elemental Shaman has the ability to play even just a little bit later into the game than you would imagine. Because of cards such as in our Storm Crash, Lily Pad Lurker, excuse me, sorry, the Storm Strikes, there's 2 Primal Dungeoneers and the Instructor Fireheart as well for added like late game value. So it's already looking bad for Yuansu.
It is indeed. The double trade, I don't know if I necessarily agree with. I guess it stops them being able to trade into Gyre Worm. But again, with Doomhammer and Stormstrike, every point of damage you can push face gets you very close to closing out the game. But to be fair, badajimpom is going in on the board plan and he's being consistent with it.
Librarian, go!
Oh!
He's like, finally, I get to hit the board.
Yeah, he's not doing
now.
Too much though here. I guess Cult Neophyte's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, anything to slow down your opponent, and obviously with 2 Doomhammers already in hand, that Custodian is just an elemental.
And now, imagine trading. Yeah, like you said, with both Doomhammers drawn, you just want to stop them from completing quest, because at this point, like I was saying, the Brutes just become really hard to play pre-Kurtrus, and so you're trying to make Kurtrus as impossible to play as possible, and that's a pretty good job of it so far for badajimpom. Yuansu has to go with, what, Tusk Piercer and then overwrite it with the Dreadlord's Bite? Yuck!
And this is the big deal as well with the way this hand goes. It's Doomhammer into Stormstrike, right? Like, that just happens in the next couple of turns. And right now, there is not a lot Yuansu can do about this. And this hand is not playing nice. Neophyte, of course, causing havoc to the hand of Yuansu. But I imagine there'd have to be something nutty to be drawn here that isn't Doomhammer right now. What's that? 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That 11 this turn.
Which means Doomhammer alone next turn will be able to close out the game. Yeah. Oh, sorry, down to 5. So a little bit extra, but basically threatening lethal quite happily. It needs to be Brutes right now for there to be a sliver of hope for Yuansu.
Well,
okay.
Soul Fragment as well. Okay, that helps.
Ooh. Ooh.
What is it? You can draw. Yeah, you can get them down, right? Because he has the 0 mana sigil. 0 mana sigils, they're 1.
Oh,
hey, he goes there, and he has Philosophy.
Oh,
both Philosophy.
Oh, he gets 3 on this turn.
Insane.
Oh, that's so sick.
Badajimpom can't believe it.
Not
1,
now.
2, 3.
Oi, oi, oi.
Okay. Holding 4 mana available as well. 21, 22 from Yuansu next turn. So badajimpom at least must feel relatively safe against like the reverse swing.
Kind of, yeah. For one turn, yeah.
Yeah, only for one turn. But I'm saying, for example, he could pick up Fireheart, right, to try and just sneak a lethal out of nowhere.
Yeah, there are very much outs. If he trades into the 7-8 here and gets the second Stormstrike off the top, that would leave him 2 damage off lethal, because he'd have to swing into the second half of the other one as well. Taking out the smaller one instead, I don't really see the reason why. I think I'd rather just chunk off a bit more health while I have the minion available to trade.
Especially because the 1-1 on board just kills the 1-1 you've saved by not trading, right?
But that's not going to matter now, because now with Glide, Double Jump, and the Lion's Frenzy, I think that's just game. What is this series, Raven? The most broken deck in the game is apparently Brute Demon Hunter, a whole Masters Tour later, nerfed into the ground, and it's still getting the job done. It's
more incredible that, like, badajimpom did exactly what I expected to happen, right? He had the elemental curve opening, the Doomhammer was there, the buffed Doomhammer was there for the next turn, but on the literal final moment of the game, that Yuansu had to make something happen, because let's be honest, his lead up to that turn was relatively poor, right? His opponent didn't really give him much to do. The literal last second, not only did he draw a Brute, he drew 2 and then managed to get them to 0 and have a Philosophy for that third one. It's huge.
Yeah, we're starting to see now how he's won 9 series of Hearthstone in a row in this Masters Tour. Yeah, if he's able to do that, then count me in. It's still scary for Yuansu because, yes, Brute Demon Hunter is relatively weak to aggro a lot of the time, but aggro has gotten weaker since Brute Demon Hunter was a force in the metagame. Obviously, it's been nerfed out of existence for the most part as well, but that was still a tough matchup, a good one. But the really scary part for Yuansu left is that Druid that still needs to get a win, because if you think Brute Demon Hunter struggles against lots of elementals at the start of the game, this Anaconda Druid really cannot take the heat.
Yeah, and even, I would say as well, generally speaking, just for me, the Elemental Shaman versus the Hunter isn't the most fun matchup for Hunter either, because although you can get a foothold on the board, generally their minions are just bigger than yours, and by the time like you play your Rhino, you run into a Lilypad Lurker turn, or even a Canal Slogger, right? So like, the things just don't line up quite well enough, and although you're pushing bits of damage, it is very difficult even for the Hunter matchup, but you are right, the Druid is a true nightmare, and we're going to begin having a nightmare here, Derek, because that's what Yuansu's queued. kindling.
Kindling. What is this? Kindling coin granite he can go into the Arid Stormer. Then even just Lily Pad Lurker as a 5/6 for 4 mana is obviously absolutely huge. The Revenant as well to help the curve out even further. This is, aside from Bolner, which he doesn't include, the absolute dream in the deck.
I do know you were saying we can see how Yuansu's got 8-0, right? Right now, I can see how badajimpom has got here as well, because these Elemental Shaman openings are exactly what you're after.
Just straightens his camera. He's like, yeah, look into the eyes of the man who's about to do this to you. This is filthy.
Look at me. There is Glowfly, though, for Yuansu, right? So he has something. He can now even get it out if he wants to just put forward the sort of minimal amount of Glowflies.
So what? Bloom Glowfly for 4. Bloom Solar Glowfly for 4. I don't recommend, but it's still a possible play.
Questions like whether a Lunar Eclipse is worth it, and I think if this was a Vapor, it would be, but because it's not, right? This 1/2 doesn't challenge a Glowfly, so you'd rather have the extra minion.
Ooh.
Heard though, Arid Storm is pretty good. He's just going to Earth Revenant. Okay.
I think I like this a little more, right? It deals the 1 damage to allow the Kindling Elemental to finish one off, and then next turn, double Arid Stormer is possibly going to be even better than Lily Pad Lurker in terms of answering what's come down.
And he knows that there's no fear of Arbor up, right? So he's not too bothered about that one, so... Or extremely unlikely Arbor up, should I say. I probably won't say no fear, but extremely unlikely.
Yeah.
Now, do you like the trade here? badajimpom looks like he's eyeing this up. It hurts not to see 4 to go to face, though.
Yeah, just if you trade, then they can Lunar Eclipse your minion, and I think you can't have a read on them not having Lunar Eclipse at all. So the face hit I do like a lot. Allow the Earth Revenant to tank the hits. It's what it's supposed to do. It's got a very high health total, and Yuansu is just hero power passing on this turn, which, does set up for a pretty strong play next turn with Solar plus the Arbor up as well, but it is going to have to be monstrously powerful to fight back against this from badajimpom, who deletes his board and is still representing a lot of damage.
Didn't play around the old double 2 mana buffed Arid Storm. Imagine. A good response, or at least a decent response here from Yuansu. What's he looking at here? 4, 8, 10 damage just on board by the badajimpom.
So if he was to just go face here with the Doomhammer, he can push 14 if his board is cleared. He's not representing lethal the turn after, and his Lily Pad Lurkers would then be inactive. It looks to me like you still have to go for Lily Pad into maybe a second one or Doomhammer, but board is still his avenue to victory here, I think.
I agree completely, and as we seem to find ourselves saying a lot, because Lily Pad Lurker's effect is so strong, it's still a 5/6.
Oh, yes.
Like, it's just a big boy. So I think I like this a lot. You get to kill one with the Arid Stormer and then trade into something else if he wants. Maybe double trade into the next 6/4 as well. Could go the other way and try and retain the Arid Stormer in the 2/6 and leave the 2/4/3s that way.
Yeah, I think the 2/6 is annoying enough to the point where you don't have to double trade, because if you double trade with the Arid Stormer and the Earth Revenant, then they can just trade into your Granite Forgeborn as well, and you end up with less attack power on board. So taking the trade with the Forgeborn into the 6/4, I think just leaves you with more attack power overall, and you can launch the rest phase. This is spot on for me.
Yeah, it's like a lot of the time a middle ground isn't a good thing, but it's like one of the times where the good middle ground was hit there, I think, from badajimpom.
Yes, exactly.
Deep intake of breath there, Derek, but I don't see much mana for a while to get these things done.
Yeah, I mean, he can overgrowth on this turn that allows him to go for Scenario next turn, is the best I can come up with here. And it's pretty good, you know, if he can get one of the big taunts, maybe a Moarg Forge Fiend or the Dreadlord as well, to get some lifesteal and taunt.
Gonna go Doomhammer. I was honestly, maybe weirdly, looking at Lilypad again to double trade the Arid Stormer and then just have 2 5/6s on board. This does push a lot. He's just saying enough's enough. Yeah, if he wants to stop playing for board as much, I kind of understand this a little bit more because he gets to retain the minions he's got and push slightly more damage overall.
Ooh, Fungal Fortunes plus Claw Machine, it's just not quite there, is it? You're just dead on board to the weapon swings plus all the Wind Fury, so it has to be Cenarian Ward.
And this is the benefit, right? Because he drew the smaller elemental with the Custodian.
Oh yeah.
Play it, and now Lilypad is still active. Whereas if that was a different minion, Lilypad Lurker would not be active this turn, which was one of my initial worries of not playing it. But of course, sneaking the 2/2 in there.
Wow, really?
But wait, what?
Okay, if you hero
4, 5,
power,
6, you killed that. Yeah.
you are alive. Just at what, 1 health
Best kind of alive.
Okay, I can respect this. I guess the Cenarian Ward had to give him a taunt or he was just dead anyway. No burst damage for badajimpom, which means the hope is still alive for Yuansu. With Anaconda plus Fungal Fortunes, he could pop off.
He did get an elemental though, so that's the second best thing, right? Because this Lilypad is still active, so if there's a taunt in the way next turn, he can get through it relatively easily.
Oh, double 1-mana Fungal though. We're looking for Solar, Bloom, obviously Germination to copy this and give some taunt as well. Start nature studies, I guess. Yeah, just see what you get. Another Cenarian, or is it Kodo Mount to give it rush? I don't know. Oh. Innovate allows you to
nourish.
Right, and you have to draw off of it though, right? You can't go for...
Oh, it's so rough.
If you ramp, it's just over, right? You're dead.
Yeah. So should he just Luna first? Yeah, like
sure.
Right?
Yeah,
Kill the minion first. Just do. You may as well get rid of it, right? It's doing the effect. Get rid of one more minion. You never know what's going to happen next. It's going to draw as well.
I don't think there are actually any draws that get him there. Exactly. He can't play the Germination. Solar Eclipse is playable, but nothing to go with it. And there it is. Yuansu throws it down. And look at how much this means for badajimpom. The passion of this player is palpable as he goes through to the top 4. What a way to kick off our quarterfinals.
Yeah, it's a huge win for him as well, right? And and so one-sided, it must feel great as well to just say, oh yeah, 3-1, and even that Demon Hunter matchup was one draw away from being over anyway with those brutes. So yeah, really strong overall there from badajimpom, and what a step up as well. Of course, hitting top 16 is great. It's a great result in an upwards of 400-person tournament. Hitting top 8, even better. Now top 4. I think at this point, he might start to believe he's actually going to win, which sounds like it's an insult, and it really isn't. I'm just saying, once you hit that top 4, you just think, well, suddenly it's 2 matches of Hearthstone away from victory, which would be a huge, huge deal for any of these players.
Yeah, I mean, we saw that recently from #1 highest win rate Masters Tour player Judgment, right, at the end of the last Masters Tour, where he's only played in 1, but getting through all the way to the semi-finals was very, very impressive, and you could see just how much it meant to him in one of his first Master Tours. So badajimpom, I believe I misspoke in saying it was his first Masters Tour. I think it's his second here.
He went 4-4, right, in his first one.
Right, okay. But still, basically the start of a competitive Hearthstone career. This is, very, very few